erupts as a judge's power collapses. Federal marshals step in during live testimony. Power abused. Accountability delivered.
He mocked Senator J.D. Vance, dismissed the law, and ran his courtroom like his own personal kingdom, until justice finally caught up with him in the most humiliating way possible. The courtroom in Cincinnati was packed, the kind of crowd that made people shift uncomfortably in their seats. Dark wood paneling lined the walls, carrying the weight of history. But today, the air felt charged, like something was about to snap. At the center of it all sat Judge Robert Calloway, a man whose name carried a reputation. Not the kind most judges wanted. He was known for theatrics, for cutting people off mid-sentence, for turning the courtroom into his personal stage. Some called him passionate. Others called him reckless. Today, he was particularly impatient. He flipped through documents with an audible sigh, barely glancing at the witness stand. And then there was J.D. Vance. The senator sat upright and composed, wearing a perfectly pressed navy suit. He wasn't easily rattled. He'd faced tougher crowds and harsher words. Still, even he could feel the hostility radiating from the bench. It started the moment he was called to testify. Judge Calloway barely looked up. "Let's make this quick, Senator. I assume you have something relevant to say." Vance didn't flinch. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and began laying out the facts in a steady, controlled tone. But Calloway wasn't listening. He leaned back, arms crossed, a smirk forming on his lips, waiting for a reason to interrupt. And when Vance made his first key point, the judge pounced. All right. We get it," Calloway scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. "You're here to make a speech. I don't need a campaign rally in my courtroom." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The court reporter hesitated before resuming her typing. Even some attorneys shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Vance remained unshaken. He locked eyes with the judge, a faint frown appearing, but he didn't respond to the jab. He simply continued. Calloway wasn't done. He exhaled loudly, flipping a page with exaggerated effort. "Let's move this along before we all die of boredom, shall we?" A few chuckles echoed, some from his usual defenders, others born purely out of discomfort. Vance's attorney leaned toward his colleague and whispered, "This is a joke." "That's not bias, that's outright contempt." The younger attorney nodded. "He wants a reaction." But Vance didn't give him one. He adjusted his tie and spoke evenly. "With all due respect, Your Honor, this testimony is important to the integrity of the case." "Spare me the lecture," Calloway snapped, shaking his head. He leaned forward, his voice quieter now, but sharper. "Let's be real. You're not here for justice. You're here to grandstand. And that's what you people do best." The room went silent. The insult was subtle but unmistakable. The condescension was deliberate. Vance's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. His hands clasped together on the table. Across the room, his legal team exchanged glances. Something was shifting. Calloway leaned back again, clearly enjoying himself. But the murmurs that followed weren't approval, they were discomfort. People shifted in their seats. Jurors exchanged uneasy looks. Vance straightened his papers and continued. "As I was saying, Your Honor, the facts of this case." Calloway groaned. Actually groaned. "Oh, give it a rest, Senator." He turned to the plaintiff's attorney. "Do you really want me to sit through another 5 minutes of this? I thought we were dealing with evidence, not ego." Gasps rippled through the room. The plaintiff's attorney stood. "Your Honor, Senator Vance's testimony is directly relevant." "If you say so," Calloway waved her off. He narrowed his eyes at Vance. "But make it quick. My patience for political nonsense is wearing thin." From there, the hostility escalated. Eye rolls. Scoffs. Mutters loud enough for the jury to hear. A reporter scribbled furiously. She'd covered enough trials to know when a judge crossed the line, and Calloway was sprinting past it. Then came the question that changed everything. "Tell me, Senator," Calloway sneered, "when exactly did you become an expert on constitutional law?" "I studied law before entering public service," Vance replied calmly. "Oh, right," Calloway mocked. Another politician who thinks reading a few books makes him an expert. Even the bailiff didn't move. This wasn't just rude. This was misconduct, on record. Vance finally leaned forward slightly. Your Honor, I'd appreciate it if we could focus on the case. Calloway laughed. Actually laughed. He looked toward the jury, expecting amusement. There was none. The room was eerily still. But Calloway didn't notice. My advice, Senator, he said smugly, stick to politics. Leave the law to people who actually know what they're doing. That's when it snapped. One of Vance's attorneys muttered, that's blatant misconduct. Another quietly reached for his phone. Because Judge Calloway had just crossed the line, and someone was about to make sure he paid for it. Moments later, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. 2 men entered. Federal Marshals. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Calloway was still talking. All right, Senator. 30 seconds. Make it count. Vance didn't respond. He had seen them. The Marshals walked straight down the aisle. Calloway noticed too late. Is someone going to explain what's going on here? The taller Marshal stepped forward and opened a folder. Judge Robert Calloway. The name hit the room like a gavel. Yes. Calloway snapped. You are under investigation for judicial misconduct, bribery, and obstruction of justice. We have a warrant for your arrest. The smirk vanished. Color drained from Calloway's face. The courtroom was dead silent. For the first time all day, Judge Calloway looked unsure. You must be joking, he said weakly. We are not, the Marshal replied. Handcuffs came out. This is my courtroom. Calloway shouted. This is a federal investigation, the Marshal said calmly. You need to come with us. Calloway looked around, at the bailiff, the clerks, the jury, searching for help. No one moved. He stood abruptly, knocking his gavel to the floor. I will not be humiliated like this. I strongly suggest you cooperate, the Marshal said. Silence. Then metal clicked. The cuffs closed around Calloway's wrists. The man who once ruled the room was now just another defendant. As he was led away, his gavel lay abandoned on the floor. Judge Robert Calloway walked out in handcuffs. His reign was over. The courtroom sat frozen in disbelief. Eventually, the clerk spoke. Court will reconvene once an alternate judge is assigned. Reporters rushed to file alerts. This wasn't just a trial anymore. This was history. As J.D. Vance stood to leave, people instinctively stepped aside. A reporter stopped him in the hallway. Senator, did you know this was coming? Vance paused, adjusted his watch, and offered the faintest smile. Justice has a way of catching up. And with that, he walked away.